Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United at the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin. It's a season review. If you're a regular listener, thank you very much. And if you're a new listener, you're very, very welcome. Late to the party, but you're very welcome. I'm your host, Mike, and with me today, I'm chatting through the season with David and Andy. Don't forget, we love hearing from you. Join the conversation, stay connected, share your thoughts, give me the thumbs up. What's it called? Retweet or react or whatever at Sutton Podcast on all major social media platforms. Likes, shares, and comments do get the podcast in front of other people's eyes and ears, so it really, really does help. So, season's over. I just can't wait to have a rest. How are you, Andy?
I'm good. I'm for one of the few times in my 40 years of following Sutton, I'm quite pleased the season's over.
Yeah, there's few and far between. I'll be honest, there's not many that we're like, oh God, I can't do it. David, how is yourself?
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, good.
Good. So, David, we'll start with you. Simple, very quick. Season's done. How do you feel about it?
I think it's been a successful season, and I can tell you why. I mean, I think when Chris Agutter joined the club, did we have 2 points from 8 games or something like that?
4, I think.
Four
Yeah.
points. I think there'd been one.
Yeah, we did have a win,
hadn't there? Yeah,
we beat Leslie.
yeah. But we were in terrible trouble at that stage, and I think at that precise moment, I think success would definitely have been defined as survival in the National League, which has been achieved. So I think that means it's been a successful season. I think when you get relegated, there's many clubs that tend to go spiraling. So having been relegated from League Two a couple of years back, I think getting relegated again from the National League was a distinct possibility with the cutting budgets, with the reduced attendances, with the what has been essentially a kind of bit of a carnival of comings and goings in terms of players. I think actually surviving in this league in itself is quite an achievement. So I think it's been a successful season.
Excellent. Andy?
Yeah, I'd echo that. It started terribly. I think even by September, we were in really, really big trouble. I know people would say, oh, yeah, but we had the hardest games at the start. Well, yeah, but did we? I mean, we beat Carlisle. We got a great point at York. How many teams got that? It was the problem we had all season of basically this group of players playing really well against better sides and just not really playing well against sides that are equivalent or probably less well equipped as us. So I would say, yeah, probably a successful season for the fact that Aggie kept us up and kept us up with games to spare.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't really close in the end. It would have been, had we not switched off by the time we were pretty much safe, it would have been, a good 8 or 10 points clear.
We definitely went the other way. We definitely went into sort of, that's it, we're done, job done.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping for a bit of argumentative on this, but I'm going to give you this stat.
Well, I think to make this a bit more interesting, I mean, I think that that is not to say that things cannot be improved. It's not to say that all is perfect, and it's not to say there aren't some mistakes. But I think there's a lot of positives. So I think one of the positive things is that we have a management team now that's actually been in the club for pretty much almost a whole season in the National League. So that's got to be a good thing for next year, because having been home and away and to all the grounds and learnt the ropes in this league, that has to be a good thing. So next season, just by sheer weight of experience, should get better. the players those players that stay, of course, which won't be all of them, but those that stay will be a bit more experienced. Chris and the rest of the management team will be a bit more experienced. So I think there's a lot to look forward to. But it's not to say that there aren't things that can be improved. I think there are, and we can get into that probably. Some of the observations we might have about how things could get better.
I haven't checked this stat because I'm just going to take AB's word for it. He said this was our 14th highest finish ever.
Yeah.
But with that, you've got to balance it up as it's our worst in a decade. 10 years since we won the Conference South, and we never finished. I think it was 17th was the lowest before this season. And the last 5 years has been lower. Does that stat tell you we should be grateful for what we've had, or does that tell you that actually we're seeing a bit of a decline? David, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, like most things in life, you can see that from very many different angles, right? So, I mean, you could say that on a long-term graph, we're outperforming our average quite considerably, right? Which is true. If you take a much shorter term look at the graph, you'd say, well, actually, we're at the bottom end of where we've been in the last few years. I think the truth might be somewhere in the middle. So, I mean, long term, I think the club has improved tremendously in pretty much every single area. So, league positions, the leagues we're playing in, the state of the stadium, the size and the quality of the squad, the overall sense of a club which is gameplay. So I think basically the club has improved in pretty much every single metric in the last few years. The last year or two, obviously, it's got worse from a playing standpoint. We got relegated. We nearly got relegated again this year. And we could have been then into, I think, probably a sort of, I think the reason it was such a successful season in my view is I think if we do go back down again, I think from there, it's really, I mean, relegations are relatively easy to achieve, I think, and promotions are horrendously difficult to achieve. Mm-hmm. So going down again this year, I think would have made it very difficult to get back up again. And then I think you can get into spirals down.
Good point you mentioned about the difference in the stadium is obviously with that 10 years ago where we won the title, there's a lot of videos going around and everyone going, I can't believe the difference in the stadium. And again, it's the small increases over the years. You're thinking, well, that's where a lot of this money is gone because it's not just on the pitch we have to spend and on the actual pitch. But Andy, what do you feel about that? The sort of the timeline of the historical where we are compared to more recent history.
If you look at the teams who we played against this season, like Scunthorpe, like Carlisle, like Rochdale, like York, these are teams. You can even go down as far as say Yeovil or something like that, who played in the Championship. We are not a big fish in a small pond. When we came up in 2016, our kind of level would have been a bit of a yo-yo club, bottom half. Kind of dropping down, coming up, dropping down, a bit of an Ebbsfleet type thing going on. What's happened obviously in the last 10 years, we had unprecedented success in this club. I mean, we can still go back and say no one who followed Sutton before 2020 would have ever expected us to ever have been a league club, ever. And so expectations have been raised, particularly by those people that don't remember going to Thurrock or Canvey Island or Concord Rangers or places like that. So it has. I'm not going to say we said it was a successful season. I'm not going to say it was a good season because it really wasn't. But we did things which we really wouldn't have seen at Sutton before, like we sacked a manager. Mm-hmm. Again, if you've been following Sutton for more than 3 or 4 years, you know that never happens. So I think it's not been great, but I think it's the fact that we did avoid relegation and we've got something to build on next season and start with something pretty much afresh with a new, young, enthusiastic manager who at times delivered some really good stuff this year, giving him a chance to build a squad of his own rather than pick up pieces that have been left to him or inherited to him. I think, I wouldn't look at like this is the lowest place we've been in the last 10 years. I would be much more. It's our 14th highest finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people who would have only picked up Sutton in the last 5 years. So again, I mean, Johnny is a great example. He started supporting us at the period of success. So he only ever knew success.
Yeah.
There will be some people who started supporting us the season after we finished 8th and have only known decline. It depends on your perspective, I guess. But if we go back to those early months of pre-season, Andy,
Mhm.
a good pre-season. Where your definition of a successful season for both of you, all of us, sorry, has been actually was quite successful because we've adjusted it. What were you going into the season hoping for? Steve had promised us better.
Yeah.
We did have a very difficult first few weeks because the teams we were playing were all favourites and much bigger budget than us. But what were you hoping for in the season, and how were you feeling in those first sort of 8
I was
to 10
hoping
weeks?
for mid-table.
Mhm.
That was a realistic thing, but alarm bells were ringing because it just felt like, even though on paper the friendlies were probably right, they felt too easy. And you go in winning every single friendly, you learn nothing.
Yeah.
You actually want to be losing more than you're winning, so that you can understand why you lost, how you can improve it. I mean, some of that. I mean, the Hampton game. I think that might have been the last friendly. I think that was just. It was just so easy. It was, we came out of that. It's like, yeah, they've got a few minutes into their legs, but that's about it, really. They didn't really need to run. So that set, because I remember last time we did really well in friendlies, we got relegated. So that worried me a little bit. But I didn't really get worried until September. Because York was a great performance. Solihull was a very good, solid performance at home. Forest Green was an obvious tactical error. We needed a holding midfielder. We didn't have one. They ripped us apart. And then things started going a bit funny. The Scunthorpe game at home, we probably shouldn't have lost that one. I think we were good enough for a draw there. Then we beat Carlisle, great. And then September happened, and it was just, what's going on?
Yeah. David, what about yourself at the start of the season? Great pre-season, which.
Well, I remember at the time listening to the podcast, of course, Mike, and I remember there was a guest or two on who were super positive about the season because of the pre-season, and I wasn't, and I couldn't quite tell you why. And I'm not very good at remembering individual matches, Andy, I'm afraid. So I'm terrible at that. But I do remember the overall sense of it, which is I thought the pre-season, I don't trust that at all. Because I think it never makes it doesn't ever seem to make much material difference in terms of results, what the impact might be on the real results in the league. So I think the pre-season we should kind of definitively learn that it's for getting fit, for having a look at different players, for trying different formations, and for doing whatever it is that football clubs do, but it's not for looking at results. So I wasn't that optimistic, and I felt there was something about the way we were playing that I wasn't particularly convinced by. I didn't see any signings which were particularly exciting at that time. Again, don't ask me to remember the individual names, because that's also been another bit of a crazy revolving door. I mean,
it's going to be this as well.
There was a time when I could tell you sort of 1 to 11 and then 3, 4 subs, and that was pretty much our season, And now, I mean, we've got people coming and going on loans and then joining for a week, and then we have the interview, and then a couple of weeks later they're not there anymore. And I think that's been one of the kind of intrinsic problems we've had in the last couple of years. On the playing side, we've got players that are not quite as good as what we used to have going back 2, 3, 4 years, obviously because we've dropped a league down, but also the turnover is just mad. For reasons which I think we all understand. It's to do with budgets and availabilities and the way the loan system works, and you're going fishing for players in the lower leagues, and you're taking a bit of a punt on players. So there's all kind of reasons, and then there's obviously the budget limitation. So there's all kind of reasons why that's happening. But it must be extremely difficult to get any kind of stability in a team or a setup when you're literally having new players coming every week or two. And if you look at the lineup of sort of 3 or 4 years ago, you could probably say to Andy or you, Mike, can you name the 1 to 11 of the sort of 2023-24 season? We probably, maybe not 1 to 11, but you could probably get 8, 9, or 10 of them.
Mm.
And there's been times this season where I just I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
who we're playing and who we're not.
And formation as well. Sometimes you're like, I can't work out, especially when they put it up on the list with the number order. So I'll try and work out who's playing where, and I can't do that. But I think I kind of know the answer to this question, to be fair. But how were you, David, at the time when people were getting at Morrow? Were you as
well? I don't like it when it gets ugly. Because this is only football, this is not life and death, as Shankly famously said, or rather the opposite. But it's not, this is a club which is, I think ought to remember where it is and what it is and where it's come from. So when it gets unpleasant, I don't like that really. So I might have my own views about Steve Morison, but I think I have to assume he was doing his best. I think he was a decent kind of bloke. He obviously knew a lot about football, far more than I do, having played in the Premier League. So I think that he deserved respect for that. And the previous season, he did a reasonable job. Well, it was a failure ultimately because we got relegated. But, he made a kind of decent stab at keeping the team up. But it just wasn't working. And there was something around that guy and the club that wasn't clicking. In terms of personality or style or relationships. I couldn't tell you what that is because I wasn't on the inside, but you could just feel it from the outside that it's not really flowing. Oh, so I think that it was a good decision to change. It was necessary, and I think it was a good decision to change early as well. I think it would have been very easy to give it another month or 2 or 3, and by that time we might well have been in real dire straits.
Yeah. And Andy, how about yourself? Again, you're very similar to me. Support the person in the job. Give them all our best. But how were you kind of feeling about a lot of the comments and stuff at the time, or were you kind of thinking he has to fall on his sword at some point?
Again, it's a lot of the comments that come from so-called supporters are unnecessary and inappropriate. It's right. It's not life and death. It's a football club, and it brings people together. By doing that, you're pushing people apart, and that just doesn't work. There's been some hideous stuff, and even after Morison had gone a few months, it was still hideous stuff about him. I can't abide that, to be honest, and it's never ever necessary. These people are human as well. You may not get on with them, but they've done nothing personally to you. They haven't gone out of their way to push us near the bottom of the league just to spite you.
Yeah, woke up on Saturday when what really piss Andy off is if we lose today. I mean, I've said many times, I understand why people didn't like him. I always got whatever I wanted from him, so whether I was able to manage him or I managed my own expectations, who knows? But he did leave. We took our time-ish again. Lots of rumours of different managers. What was your initial thoughts on Aggie and the sort of the early few weeks of how he was and how the team was? Andy, that's to you.
Right. Okay. So my very, very, very first thought, which probably left after about 5 seconds, was, "Oh my God, I hope he's not another Ian Hazel." Because it was kind of, we went from, for those who don't know, we had a very long serving manager in John Raines. He won us a title. He was Sutton through and through. Everyone loved him. And he basically stepped back and said, right, well, I can't take this club any further. So the board always at that point were looking for someone who had a Sutton connection. And they hired this kind of young, kind of inexperienced manager, Ian Hazel. He's great, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, he was awful. And I was thinking, are we doing that again? It didn't last very long. Because I think Aggie was like, he obviously had better experience. He'd had some success. He was very, very positive in his outlook. I think in the first couple of weeks, I thought he was, with some of the things he said, he was unbelievably naive. Like after a first game against Braintree, you're never going to see us play that bad again. Yeah, no, we will. And we did. And we did. And we did. But yeah, I mean, hopefully he's learned from that experience. But yeah, in terms of at the start, you could tell that some players really had an issue with Morison, because some players really started playing a lot better and a lot more confident under a new management. Whether that was just to kind of cement their place in the side, or whether it was relief that they weren't playing for a manager they didn't see eye to eye with, or didn't understand his tactics or whatever. But we had that great little part after that first 0-0. We had, what was it, 11 games on the trot where we scored at least 2 goals, something like that.
Yeah, we're gonna come to that.
Yeah. So I'll shut up there and we'll come to that.
That's fine. Just in case Hayes is listening, he loves you as a man. It was the management.
Yeah.
Yeah. David, what about yourself? When Aggie first came in, Andy's alluded to something there which we'll pick up on in a second, where what he was saying is generally positive, and saying and doing the right things. But how were you feeling about the choice and sort of shortly after?
Well, the choice, like, truth be told, when these choices are made, I think the name appears. You think, okay, well, who's that? So you go online and think, all right, so what can I find out about? So it's not as if I kind of know all the names of managers in the leagues below us, in all honesty. But when I read the CV, I thought, well, it looks, good. I mean, lots of experience, lots of coaching experience at a kind of good level, having had some experience the year before with Worthing. So I thought he landed really well in the club on a kind of, from a stylistic point of view, from the way that he spoke, from the way that he interacted with people. I think stylistically he felt a lot more like a Sutton United manager. And of course, don't ask me to say what exactly that is, but you can just kind of feel it. And I felt around the club there was a bit of a sigh of relief just having that kind of personality, a bit more approachable and personable, and someone you maybe could relate to a bit better. So I thought he landed really well. And then, in terms of the bold statements, I mean, that's a style maybe, and that's maybe how he motivates himself and how he motivates the players. I don't know. I mean, later on, it's very easy. Hindsight is fantastic. So it's very easy to look back and say, well, maybe he should have been a bit less ambitious, and he shouldn't have made those comments about the Braintree game, and as Andy was saying. So yeah, maybe not, but he's also learning. I think we all should also bear in mind that he's entitled to make mistakes. It's fine. We all do. And it might be that he himself might look back and think there's stuff that he could have done differently. But I don't think we have to kind of land upon every time he puts a foot wrong and jump on it like it was kind of a showstopper for the club or a deal breaker. I mean, I think we need to kind of relax a bit and grow up a bit about how we react to things too. I mean, it's okay for him to make mistakes, but I thought he landed really well.
Yeah, it's not a gymnastics Olympic final where the tiniest sideways movement of your foot loses your points. You'd like to think.
Can I just interject on one thing there? It's about the whole thing about Aggie being more of a Sutton manager. I don't know if that's necessarily by design. When you sack a manager, there is no point in getting a carbon copy straight in. So we had Matt Gray, very personable, very positive, very much, always went for a drink with the fans, that sort of thing. When you replace that and you've had to sack them because they haven't performed to the standard you expect, you get somebody in who is probably at the other end of the scale, which we did with Morison. Who was nothing like that. Most of the time, a lot of people struggle to get the sentence out of him. When we sacked him, you go back to the other side of the scale, and then you have someone like Aggie, who is a bit more character-wise, more like Matt Gray. So,
I think it's also always easier to be the man that replaces the man that replaced the favourite.
Yeah.
So Matt, a lot of love from everyone, even though it went bad at the end. Steve was always onto a loser because he was replacing someone who was loved. And then Aggie's replaced Steve. But you're right, he does do the right things. He had that conversation with Francis when she was in hospital, gave gave her a phone call. She chatted to him for like 20 minutes.
That was class. That really was class.
In from what I know, I think she got off quite likely with 20 minutes, to be fair. But he kind of got it, and he doesn't stop with those outlandish statements though, because I don't know if you saw or if it was on the video of the awards evening. He has said we're getting into the playoffs next year. We're challenging. That's it. They absolutely promise that's going to happen. We're going to find these extra 50 points from somewhere. So, can't you just say we'll be a bit better than we were last year? That's probably be better. But it's just the way he does it. He wants to say what he thinks. He says there's no point trying to water it down. Let's just go for it. Andy, you alluded to it a minute ago and I cut you off. He did suddenly hit all the right buttons, get the right notes, get a good tune out of the team. And it was as if, like, blimey, there were good players there. We've cracked it. Did you believe we'd cracked it, or did you think we're a bit frail? These are only sort of 1-0s, or one goal margins. Did you think that's it? We've done it now. We're pushing on.
No, I thought we were pushing on. I really did. I mean, there was some kind of obviously, Willstone away losing 4-2 actually was a better indication of what was to come.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, we were scoring for fun. Goals were coming from all around the pitch. Players that had previously been in their shell, like Elon Pruti, suddenly became good. Hayden Muller, who was basically rejected, came back, came good. There was, you can go across the pitch and just see, oh yeah, we are playing with confidence. So yeah, I think at that point I thought, yeah, we're going to be all right.
Okay, thank you, because you know what's coming in the next question when David's had his turn.
Yeah.
David, what did you think? They're looking good. They're feeling good. There's a good feeling back, or were you a little bit in doubt that it's a fragile confidence?
Well, we had some stellar performances. I mean, there were some games where we looked seriously good. I mean, that first 80 minutes against, was it Shrewsbury on the TV? I mean, we looked like a pretty classy team. And in the end, we lost. But it was, for most of the game, we were the better team. And we played some very, very, very good football. And there were many games like that this year. And then the kind of frustration, I think, for everybody was that there seems to be this kind of slightly bipolar team where so on a given day they could turn up and play beautifully and go away and get a result against a leading team and then come home the next week and get dumped on by a team theoretically which was further down the league and not as good. And that became kind of in a sense the story of the second half of the season, really, which is that it was one step forward and one step back. And but I think you'd probably expect that in a way. I mean, if the expectation is you're going to play like Shrewsbury every week and just kind of knock off wins in the National League with a smaller playing budget and with a new manager and an unsettled team, I think you're kind of deluding yourself, really.
Oh, come on, that's mean.
And then we're enormously helped by a couple of very good loan signings. So notably Kai Jennings. I mean, I think he came at the right time and was in the right place. Jake Taylor made a huge difference. He's not a loan signing; he's permanent. But those signings made a huge difference to the trajectory of the team. I think more so than anybody else. So I think we got lucky there. Well, it wasn't entirely luck because they made the right choice, but it had the guy got an ankle twist or done his knee, we would have had problems, and they made a huge contribution. And I think it changed the course of the season, really.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned a couple of things, and one of the things you said there is there's no way you could play like that 80 minutes against Shrewsbury every week. But where do you think the bubble burst? Where do you think, or what do you think caused the sudden downfall? Was it just inexperience, or was there a bit more to it? David, this to you. Where do you think it started to go wrong?
Well, we had quite a few of those games where we were getting ourselves into a tangle at the back with the ball, so we were kind of passing around. That's where the Shrewsbury game went wrong, right? We had a mistake. We gave them exactly. We gifted them. I mean, really was gifting them. We gave them a goal. I don't know what that does to confidence, but I don't think it can't be good. So if you're essentially setting up and establishing a way of playing, which is playing out from the back and all of that, for reasons which I think I understand properly. Of course, when you start having mistakes, that must knock confidence and brings a bit of question, I imagine, to the belief in the system. I don't know, but the confidence seemed to kind of dissipate somewhat. Don't ask me why, but that might be why. Some fans got a bit frustrated with the playing out from the back, and then you get into this kind of, I think, is a bit of a daft debate about whether you should or shouldn't play out from the back. And I think the answer is you need to play out from the back sometimes, and other times you don't. And I noticed in the team that it did get it got more mixed up as the season went on.
Yeah.
So we weren't just kind of noodling it around our 6-yard box, which was causing us all some kind of consternation, I think. And then Jack Sims did start to kind of pick out players further up the pitch and launch it sometimes, and that makes everybody feel a bit better, because sometimes it was getting worrying.
I've said it many times. Outside our penalty area, fine, do what you like, but inside the penalty area, I'm just like, please get rid of it, please don't let it go. Andy, what did you think about the run coming to an end, and then the run after that, where it's all nothing we could do was right? I mean, David said some of the games, but Morecambe, for example, didn't batter us for 90 minutes. Morecambe battered us for 26 minutes.
They didn't need to after that.
Yeah, but a lot of the games, like Solihull, I think it was 12, 15 minutes.
Yeah,
we conceded so many goals in this really short space of time. But what do you think caused, or multiple things, or what do you think caused the problems?
Shrewsbury, oddly enough.
Yeah.
We absolutely dominated that game. Our possession stats were something like 75% or something like that. We completely dominated that game. We get 2 players sent off. The players are knackered. And something that I've been saying for a long time this season is the squad as a whole, not necessarily individuals, but as a whole, the mentality is very fragile. And they're not the type of players who can take bumps in the road. And that's when things started going awry. I mean, straight after Shrewsbury, you had Walton and Hersham. Less said about that, the better. Then you had Solihull. Again, 10 minutes of complete madness. Then you had Aldershot, one of the worst 0-0 draws I've ever seen. But then all of a sudden we got to Southend, and we were really unlucky to lose 1-0. I thought that was one of our best performances of the season. Played York at home, another decent performance. Lost. Forest Green at home, decent performance. Tamworth, again, not a bad performance. And then it started going a bit funny again. Brackley, Boston, probably one of the worst performances I've seen this season. And then we had, again, a little run, a little bit of confidence again, and then Morecambe hit us. Okay, we got Scunthorpe after that. But then after that, we were, with the exception really of Eastleigh, Rochdale, and Aldershot, we were just...
Hartlepool was another good, because I said at the time, the Scunthorpe, Morecambe, Hartlepool, and Truro games, I can reverse them.
Yeah.
Everyone would have been like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, fine.
No problem. It's because you got the good ones. As you said, we beat the tough teams, and the inferior teams, if you like. We struggled with it. I mean, do you think, Andy, when you mentioned the squad, Aggie did kind of have to get a lot of players out on loan, that he basically said they're not going to get us to where we want them, or where we want to be. So basically, they're gone, I would imagine. A lot of that would have been having to get rid of them so we can then move the budget to get some players in. But the squad ended up being quite thin. And do you think that didn't help with, because when you're running and everything's going well, you feel invincible. But when it stops, suddenly that's when the back starts aching and everything starts going. Do you think that had a lot to do with it as well as confidence?
I think so. I mean, I think it would be unfair for me to say it's just their mental fragility. I mean, when we won the league, our injury record was like no one got injured. And when you do get a lot of injuries, that will have an effect on the balance of the side, on how the side gels. You're playing players in a different positions that they wouldn't normally play, like Brandon, for example. How many times was he played as a lone striker because we had to? And he isn't a lone striker. He's fantastic. He's got a striking partner with him, but on his own, that's not his game. But he was being forced to play that game because we didn't have anyone else. So you kind of had that kind of mix. So I think that played into it. We did get a lot of injuries. We got a few suspensions. We won't talk about the discipline too much either. But yeah. But again, I just think it got to a point, and Aggie said this in the last couple of his interviews. It's like subconsciously, once we were pretty much safe, the players switched off, and that's not what you need. And a part of the reason of the success we've had before, I wouldn't say necessarily that technically players like Harry Buseman or Craig Eastman or Craig Dundas, something like that, are significantly better than what we have in terms of like National League performers. But mentally they were. I mean, nothing bothered Harry. He would just run all day. Eastman was tough, but he was consistent. Dundo, again, nothing bothered him. And here you're seeing players doing silly things, and I think the mental fragility is tied in with discipline.
Yeah. Andy, on the mental fragility thing, would it include something I observed? Is I got the feeling that whenever a good performance happened, it was a bit like getting a good grade at school. Everyone kind of patted themselves on the back and relaxed, and started thinking they're a little bit better than they really are. So when you've got someone who's got a real kind of tough winning mentality, the success will be something to be built on and improved on, rather than sit back in your armchair and think what an achievement you've had. So I think I got a feeling that there was a lot of that. So after every good game, you kind of felt like almost inevitably it's going to come a bad one now, because they just haven't got the kind of winning hard streak of getting better and improving. And of course I'm sure they're training just as hard, and I don't think it's a lack of effort, but somehow it just the bit of self-satisfaction crept in. So look how good we are, and look what we're capable of doing. But then the trouble is, you then got to go and do it the following Tuesday, the following Saturday, the following Tuesday, and that's much more difficult.
And you will, you're absolutely right, and you will get that with a younger squad.
I was going to say, do you think the fact that we don't have someone apart from Jake, who came in late on, we don't have someone to go, boys, you haven't done anything. You haven't won anything yet. You've won a match of football. Anyone can win a match of football. Do we need that experience? Like when Charlie got himself sent off, I can't remember who it was against, but it was literally a yellow card, and then less than 5 minutes later, another yellow card. You needed someone to be sitting there going, calm down. Just don't do anything stupid for the next few minutes.
And that's the thing. Even in April, I mean, basically, Aggie's response to that was, I should have substituted him. It's kind of like that. No, you need someone to calm him down and get him to play more positive whilst on the pitch. It's not like somebody gets a yellow card and the first thing you think is, I need to substitute them, because you want to be using these substitutes to benefit you, not to necessarily result in someone's indiscipline.
So we were going to talk about discipline, but so lots of penalties. Actually, David, I haven't asked you what you felt about the sort of the depth of the squad and the sort of the injuries and so on.
Well, you see, I think that's a little bit of a red herring, because the thing is, if you got every manager in the National League to talk about squads, I bet you they would all say at various points of the season that they're very stretched, that they've got some injuries, they've had some suspensions, that their number 9 has twisted his ankle, therefore they're having to play a lone striker instead of, whatever. And, today we haven't got a regular back 4 because one of the guys is not well and the other one's his wife's having a baby. So I'm not sure that this is a kind of a good place to be having a conversation, because ultimately that's just part of the season. And of course you can say, yeah, but ours is worse than everyone else. It may or may not be. But in honesty, do we really think the squad was small this year? I mean, at certain points it struck me we had about 40, 50 people, potentially wearing an amber shirt on a Saturday. And I mean, either they're in the club to be players or they're not. And if they're not, then why are they there? But we had a lot of people, I don't know what the numbers are, but it struck me we got a very big squad. And I guess at a certain point there was a pinch point where there's a lot of injuries and suspensions. You might have a few match days where it's not the case. But in general terms, I don't think the size of the squad could be a problem, could it?
Not not necessarily wondering about the size of the squad, but the quality. So let's say we've got, I don't know, 7 players that you think, right, we're hinging our bets on them doing really well every game. And if you've got, say, like for example, Junior, David, and Jake suspended, suddenly you're down to a maximum of 4 of those players, and you're putting other players in who you might think, well, actually, are they up to the standard of the people we're taking out? But I accept your very reasonable point that other managers would have the same thing. I don't know what you're doing on a fans podcast, making reasonable points like that. But everyone's against us.
I'm doing my best not to, but
the referees hate us. The gods hate us. But yeah, disciplinary. Do we think, David will say with you, that it's fair to say we need the players playing on the edge? Or do we need to be saying, hang on a minute, let's roll this back? I mean, Dave Fairbrother made a really, just in the modern game, odd comment on the forum that there was one season that we got 1 yellow card, but we didn't win the Fair Play Award because Wickham got 0 yellow cards. So 2 teams getting 1 yellow card between them, that's never going to happen now. But do you think it was part of the fragility, or do you think it's something that we need to work on? Or
they've got to work on it. I mean, it's about, it's anything which is to do with marginal gains and improving and becoming more professional. And part of that is staying on the pitch. Mm-hmm. So of course you've got to work on that. And you will get yellow cards and you will get sendings off. And of course people are playing on the edge, but you can't have what we had this year is too much. Yeah. And also and again, I'm very bad at remembering individual incidents and games and names and everything. But I remember 1 or 2 where they were kind of stupid red cards. So, over the top challenges. I think there were 1 or 2 for punch ups after the game had ended. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, it really doesn't. And that's just not professional. Yeah. So, of course, they're not perfect. So they will make mistakes and you'll get the odd one. But if as a data point, you would want to improve that next year.
Yeah. Andy, what do you think about the...
I mean, conceding 15 penalties...
That's in the league. Let's just say that's in the league.
Yeah. No, that's not playing on the edge. That's playing with stupidity.
Yeah. I think it was Ryan Deeney who said that, and I'm like, it's way more than 15. There's no way it was 15.
I mean, you've got. Some of those. Yeah, I saw pretty much every one of those penalties conceded. Right. Some of them were a little bit harsh. Some were really stupid. I mean, just painfully stupid. So you need to cut out the stupid ones and just take the hit where you've got the ones that are a bit harsh or has to be done because a player is like completely free on goal or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's not playing on the edge. Playing on the edge is you going forward and taking risks and maybe giving away a yellow card here and there because you've got him for a tackle which will give you the advantage and you going forward. That's playing on the edge. Kind of like mucking about in your own penalty area and just doing stupid things is not playing on the edge.
No. I mean, I joked around it a minute ago, but do you think referees might have a glance at the disciplinary table with the teams that they're coming up against and think, oh, that's Sutton's dirty side. They look how many yellow cards they got. Because sometimes the yellow card, you're like, whoa, hang on a minute. What was that for? Other people are doing very similar. Or do you just think that's nonsense?
I think they probably do, but only near the end of the season because the start of the season is irrelevant.
Again, perfectly reasonable. What's wrong with you two? So David hinted at it earlier, but let's talk about the style of play. It's a big change from what we were perceived to be under Matt with the long ball. How do you feel, Andy? Because the long ball, I loved it in League Two because it annoyed everyone. We were getting results. Okay. Must admit, when we didn't get results, it wasn't the best watch. But how do you feel about the style that Aggie's trying to implement? Or
Well,
do you
yeah, I
think
mean,
there is a style?
going into League Two, it's kind of like, yeah, about 2/3 of the way through the second season, we got found out. And it wasn't even not even the season that Matt Gray got fired in. It was the one before, when we were losing 4-1 away at Colchester and Rochdale and places like that. We got found out, and Bromley will play the same way. Will get found out next season in League One. As soon as Morison came in, that first match, it was much better to watch. And I think Aggie has carried on with that. Some of our play. I mean, that goal we got at York, for example, the very first day of the season, played out from the back. That's when it worked beautifully, but it does come with risks. And if you haven't got big men up front, which we don't, you can't really play that kind of route one long ball anyway. So you're kind of stuck. And that is really, obviously, the team that Morison got in, which we basically again a continuation of, was based around the playing it from the back anyway. It wasn't, there was never going to be a big tall unit of a striker at the front who was going to be the target man. So I think when it works beautifully. But we need to have the right players to make it work.
Would you, I mean, David's already said this, so I know it's like, would you be more comfortable with having a big unit and options of being able to pass it around or move it quickly?
Yeah, I think if you had a big unit up front playing with Brandon, we'd be on a real roll, because those two would just complement each other fantastically. You've got Brandon with the tricky stuff, you've got the unit with the big tall headers in. And again, I mean, that we were so exposed whenever we had corners. Corners were rubbish this year. The only time the corners were ever decent were the two that Kai scored directly from. But apart from that, I mean, the rest of the corners were just appalling. So yeah, I think it's you've got to have a squad of players who are adaptable, not just play one way, but can play 2 or 3 ways depending on the opponents, depending on the circumstances, depending on the fitness, depending on the makeup.
Yeah, because David, you kind of said it earlier, is we need to mix it up a little bit, and we were doing that towards the end of the season. But even within a match, if someone's off injured for a minute, you want to get up there quickly. You want to take advantage of every single moment. But what do you feel about the style? Has Aggie got this style? Do you reckon he's stuck with it, or is it going to be a bit more flexible? Do we think?
Well, I think honestly, I'm happy to recognise he knows more about it than I do. So I trust the guy, and he knows, I think, what he's trying to do, and I assume they're working on it every day. And when it was working well, it was working beautifully well. And I agree with him. One time he said that there's, if you want to kind of lump the ball forward, we can, but that's what you get. So we had games where also we were doing that kind of hoofing it down the channels, and that wasn't working very well either. So I don't think the debate is either or. It's about a bit of flexibility and a bit of variation. The Matt Gray teams, for example, I think they're a bit unfairly characterised as being just about the long ball, because that wasn't quite the case, I don't think. I mean, we did have, also it depends on the player. So if you could say next season Omar comes back to Sutton United, okay, and there he is up the front kind of battling away and having all the duels, he was great at that. But we also used to score a lot of goals down the wing via David Ajiboy, who, by the way, has gone on to a bigger club and is doing really well. So he was a very good Sutton player. But there was a bit of variety in the Matt Gray teams. It wasn't just about lumping the ball forward. There were some good players in those teams who could get down. We had Will Randall, and there was Craig Eastman could deliver a very nice pass. Harry Buseman ran into the box. David Ajiboy was fast down the right wing. So it wasn't just a long ball. I don't think that Chris's idea is that we have only one way of playing and that's all we do. But I think his template is not humping it forward and seeing what happens. Even less so if you've got Brandon as your number 9.
Winning the ball.
Because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, because he's half the size of most of the central defenders in the National League.
Yeah. So what, if you could make it, I know you, as you said, others know more about football than all of us combined, but if you could make a template, what would you want
Can you repeat that, Mike?
Yeah, what
if you froze?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
First for me as well. Yeah.
If you could make a template, what would you like your Sutton team to look like and play like?
Like the one that we've had this season, more consistent, with better players in 3 or 4 key positions, and with a bit more streetwise about them in terms of not giving away penalties, about not conceding red cards, about not giving away free kicks just outside the box in minute 85. So all of those kind of professional things which will make the team better and get better results, I think will make a big difference. I think we need some better players, and and I don't like naming names because I think, I always think everyone's trying, and what's the point really? But we're going to have to see if we can get 1 or 2 in who can improve us, just like Jake Taylor did, just like Kai Jennings did, like Lewis Simper has done. You think, who can we sign that can make this team better?
Yeah, I mean that's got to be the goal, hasn't it, Andy? If you've got player A,
there's not one word about I could disagree with.
Yeah, you want player B to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
What would your
what I'm definitely not asking for is that we say no, let's cut the short passing and cut out from the high press and building from the back, all that, and let's go back to kind of getting a couple of big number 6, a big number 6, a big number 5, and a big number 9, just kind of hoof it. That I don't think is the way forward.
No,
at all.
No, Andy, I know you agree in general, but what your template, would you agree that that's how you want football played, or do you have an ideal?
Absolutely. It's a possession pressing game. Yeah, that is much better to watch.
Yeah.
Now, me, I go up and down the country seeing something. The last thing I want to go is go all the way up to Carlisle and just see us hoofing it all the time. You want to see playing football, and then for the first 15 minutes of Carlisle, that's exactly what we did. But then we kind of forgot. So it's kind of the consistency of that. You need players. One player from last season, again, not really naming names because this would be unfair on him, but I'm going to name him for the reasons that become apparent, is Aaron Jones. Mm-hmm. Aaron Jones was exactly the sort of player on paper that we needed to get. Very experienced, proven winner, leadership skills, and it just didn't work out for one reason or another. I don't know whatever reasons they were, but it didn't work out. Although I believe we've still got him for another year anyway, unless we do something like that. But again, maybe with a newer team that could pay dividends for him next season. I don't know.
Okay, so this is a repeated question. If we ignore results, especially the last couple of months, and we look at the bigger picture, do you have optimism for the future, or are you still thinking it's going to be a bit of a slog next season, Andy?
Impossible to say. Impossible to say because we don't know who's going to be playing for us next season. Okay. The only constants we know is we know that Aggie is going to be manager at the start of the season, unless something, God forbid, happens. We've got no idea who's staying, who's going, who's coming in. So at this point, it's really difficult to say I've got optimism for next season. Once the release list comes out and then we start signing players, and hopefully we learn from last year, don't get all the players in too early, because I think that didn't help us either. Because when other targets came available, we didn't have the budget to do it.
Yeah,
it's a bloody difficult job. I would never want to be a football manager, particularly in the close season. It's horrible.
Yeah,
but
there's no close season.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I think it's impossible to say at this stage. I'm hoping. I personally though, because Aggie is going to start, he's going to have his team rather than what he inherited. I do feel we are going to do better. That's all I'm committed to at this point.
So maybe reframe it a little bit. What's one thing you would really like to see next season? You can go on the pitch, off the pitch, but what's one thing you'd like to see next season?
us not being stupid on the pitch. There's been so many times where that's happened, either where we've literally forgotten how to play football for 10 minutes, not seen a game out professionally, giving away a penalty. Just cut that rubbish out.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
David, what about yourself? Do you think there's any room for optimism at the moment based on everything aside from the up and down results? And what's one thing you'd like to see for next season?
Definitely optimistic, but that I always am. So I think it's important to be, because otherwise, what's the point? I mean, if you don't believe it's going to get better. So I think there's reasons to be the reasons to be optimistic, I think, are we have a management team that we basically believe in. They've had almost a full season in the National League, which has got to be useful. And so the last thing you want is to curtail that. So that's something to build on. There's some kind of stability, institutional stability around the club, I think, which is really good, because that helps. The optimism would come, I think, also having been through that experience. They're not daft, far from it. So they know what's needed, I think. I mean, it's obvious that there's got to be some strengthening of the squad. What does that mean? I don't know. Does it mean we have less players but better ones? Does it mean we have a different approach to loans? Does it? I mean, there's some really practical decisions in this. Practical decisions, and then of course those are all in the context of reality, which is, can you get the players you want? Have you got the money to pay them? Are they prepared to come to Sutton? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not all easy, I dare say. So between what you might wish for and what you might get, there can be some gaps. But yeah, I'm definitely optimistic. And the second part of the question, Mike, I can't remember.
What's the one thing would you like to see next season?
A tougher winning and self-improvement mentality.
Yeah.
So I think we need to, when we have a good game, this is just a small detail, but I think the club needs to turn down the volume on social media when we win a game. And we need to get used to winning games. Like, winning games is not something you do every now and then when you're having a good day and you got the win behind and all the rest of it. I think we need to kind of get back to the idea that this is a day at the office. We go in, we try and get 3 points and you win. And it's good to kind of, celebrate that, but we can't be celebrating every league win like it was a cup final with kind of videos of people kind of winding up the crowd and setting off party poppers and having ticker tape welcomes. I think we've got to, honestly, I think so. I really think the club needs to kind of, it's a serious thing. It's not criticism of the social media things. I think they're trying to, get engagement and build energy and all the rest of it, which is good, but it's got to be like proportionate to the size of the achievement. And a 1-0 home win against a team in the bottom three is not reason to be kind of popping open the champagne. We got to get a bit tougher, I think.
A 1-0 home win against a team in the bottom three would be reasons to champagne for us. I'm going to be honest with you.
It actually would be, yeah.
So, I don't know what, this just occurred to me. So some of the things we've seen recently, I mean, going to be a grumpy old man. Andy sort of said it, we don't really sack managers, but we've gone through 2 in a couple of years now. One of the things I've noticed a lot is, obviously, social media is all great fun. I have a great laugh on it, but where players are kind of going, oh, so-and-so's shit, so-and-so's this, so-and-so's that. I mean, I think Pruti was linked with a move away, and you had everyone going, well, shit, I don't know why you'd want to buy him. And I'm going, well, hang on a minute. Even if you think that, surely you should be saying, no, he's brilliant. Get the price up. What's wrong with it? I mean, do you think people are too quick to jump on players? And Sam, because if you're a new player thinking of going, oh, I might go to Sutton, let me have a little look on scroll of social media, you're going to go, not sure I want to go there because they give grief to their players. Or am I being a grumpy old man, David?
No, I think we all enjoy your grumpy old man thing, Mike. It's no, I think it's a reasonable point. I don't like it myself. I don't see the point of it. I think we're not here to be nasty to each other, whatever we may think. So I just don't like it on a human level. I don't spend a whole lot of time on social. I'm not on X. I have got Instagram, but my Instagram is always pretty positive. So I don't. If I've got anything to say on anywhere, I make it positive because I prefer it that way. So I don't like it myself. I've been on the terrace 2 or 3 times this year, and there's one or two guys kind of giving it a lot of jip to players, and I don't really get it. Honestly, I don't really get it. To me, it's a bit moronic, because they're not going to play better as a result of getting tongue lashing from some geezer on a Saturday afternoon. So I don't really see the point of it. I think if we're there to be supporters, that doesn't mean to say you can't make some constructive comment and criticism sometimes, but we are supposed to be supporting the team. It is ultimately, theoretically, a community club. It's not this is not Man U, it's not Juve. This is Sutton United, and it depends on everybody being involved and being supportive, and it's about building links with the community. So I think all that good stuff is a reality. And sometimes when people are criticizing, I don't know what actually they expect to happen. I mean, do they believe that after Brazil in the World Cup, Carlo Ancelotti is going to fancy a little couple of years at Sutton United? I mean, so when people are going on about how the players are not good enough and the manager's not in, I think, well, which players are you going to go and sign them? Because this is the level we operate at, and there's nothing wrong with it. These are all good football players, Most of them have, come from Premier League academies or League One academies, and they all know what they're doing. They're all fit and healthy and running around. And I think if you go through the other teams that come to Gander Green Lane, if you'd said who would we sign of these other teams, there's not that many players that you think, wow, this guy is an absolute standout. And by the way, if they are, they're probably going to be signed up by someone a league above or at the top of our league.
They're a lot more money than we can pay. Yeah, I've said several times this season that each of the players, you go, no, I can see the potential. I can see what's good there. But for whatever reason, it didn't work as a team for quite a long time. And I'm going to do some name dropping. David made a point there about the comments aren't going to help the player play better. And I've had both Easty and Josh go, yeah, you can't tell me whether I've had a bad game or not. I know if I've had a bad game.
Yeah.
What do you think about a lot of, I know what you think, but articulate what you think about a lot of the comments. No swearing. But how helpful do you think it is, or do you think we should all bluff it and tell everyone they're wonderful to get money from crew?
Well, I think all the negative comments are really, really helpful, but they're only helpful for the people who are making it to make them feel better about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help the player. It doesn't help the club. Never has done. And even shouting it from the terraces doesn't help them either. I mean, the number of times it was, and these are from long-term supporters, ones that will go up and down the country, just shouting out when Jaden Harris gets the ball, "You lazy bastard!" It's like, how is that going to help? How is that going to help? And he wasn't even being lazy; it's just the way he runs, sort of thing. So, everyone suddenly you put them in a football, in a football ground, they suddenly think they're the expert. They suddenly think they know better than everyone else. But you look at it with cold hard logic, it's all bollocks. It's just it's people venting their own frustration. And I see it time and time again on social media. So many people they're straight in with criticism. Usually it's kind of like it's moronic levels of criticism. And as you've seen, I've called them out a few times, as you well know. But whenever we do well, suddenly there's crickets.
Yes.
People don't. It's like people are so easy to criticize, but they're really, really difficult to compliment. If you are going to be critical, fair enough, but you've got to give the positive stuff when it's deserved in the same measure.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, all you're showing is online or in real life that you're a prat. Is that the answer you wanted to hear?
Fine. I mean, I was thinking as you were saying that, imagine if football disappeared and there was no football. There'd be a whole bunch of podcasts gone. There'd be a whole bunch of YouTube channels gone. There'll be no social media because that's all anyone ever does.
And unfortunately, there'll be aggression in places you don't really want it.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? I said to someone that I did say the old adage to one of them, opinions are like arseholes.
Yeah.
We've all got one, and most of them are just full of shit. And I include myself, obviously. Right, gents, I have kept you for way too long. Thank you so much. I am looking forward to the off season. I've got one more podcast to come with Aggie, but we are going to wrap up this season or the fans' reviews and this episode of Sutton Podcast. As always, we appreciate everyone's ear, attention, and feedback. Follow, like, and share on all social medias at Sutton Podcast. Like, subscribe, give us the thumbs up, and thank you as always to Lucky Star Gin and for you guys for your time. Andy, David, you've been brilliant. Very agreeable, but brilliant. Thanks to you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Sutton Podcast. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
United! 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 United!